For the most part, I've just been making an effort to cover the stuff that's going on in Ukraine, but I've always admired Caleb Maupin for being one of the less charismatic and less intelligent Russian propagandists. He's not as good as towing the line as a lot of other people are. The impression that I always got from him is that he had one debate with me, and it, like, changed the course of his life. You know? Like, it just irrevocably broke his brain. But why should American working people support Russia? This is from yesterday. Sure, why not? It's, what do we got?
Why should the American working class support Russia? Because support for Russia.
Oh, sorry, one other thing. Yeah, he's super mad right now because his Twitter account is labeled Russian state-affiliated media right now. And he's like, no, it's not. No, it's not, even though I work for the Russian government. And all my tweets are pro-Russian propaganda. It's a coincidence. Yeah. Sorry. Anyway.
Why should the American working class support Russia? Because support for Russia and support for China and support for the anti-imperialist countries and opposition to Wall Street.
We'll break this down while we can. Okay. So support for the anti-imperialist countries, while they're currently engaging in an invasion of a neighboring country, which Putin, their leader, has explicitly said is about absorbing territory to meet the borders of what was once the Russian Empire. So, right, we're going to be very matter-of-fact about this, because you're probably going to hear a lot of this propaganda around the internet, so, all right, we'll break it down. We'll break down the Burger King.
And opposition to Wall Street walk hand in hand.
Opposition to Wall Street. Strange to me. There is a fair degree of economic collaboration between, or at least there was before the sanctions, between the West's financial, sector and Russia's. Additionally, Russia has its own Wall Street, MOEX, the Moscow Exchange. They have their own. The fundamental institutions here are preserved. Now, of course, I understand that when Caleb Maupin says this, he means the Jews. It's one of those deals where a bunch of people who support Russia phrase their support in a way which is deliberately designed to be equally appealing to far right and far left people, right? Because far left and far right people both dislike imperialism, one of them because they consider it an anti-isolationist, multicultural thing, and one of them because they think it's bad to invade countries. They both dislike, Wall Street, one of them because they dislike capitalism, the other because they think Wall Street is run by Jews. It's very carefully planned to be appealing to both groups.
What the imperialists are doing around the world and what they are doing to America and the working class of America are the same. They are trying to grind us all into poverty.
So what the imperialists are doing... So what do we mean by that? Do we mean all people in power in the West trying to grind us into poverty? Imperialism is defined by the actions that you take against foreign populations and foreign territories. It doesn't really make sense to describe this as something which is being done to the people of America, unless to you imperialist is an anti-Semitic dog whistle, in which case you could use it that way if you did believe those things. So that's a bit strange, Especially, the interesting thing is that a ton of America's wealth is actually predicated on imperialism. Historically, that's what imperialism's been about, right? Like, the old empires would have colonies so they could siphon wealth out of, India and, places like that. And nowadays, the imperialism we engage in is stuff like the World Bank and the IMF, where they'll go into developing countries and say, hey, we'll bail you out of your economic problems as long as you make yourself really amenable to American business interests and sell all your resources to us very cheap, and you allow our companies to invest here and pay your workers 1/10 what they would pay American workers, and so on and so forth, So it seems to me like this criticism only really makes sense if you interpret it as a dog whistle.
They're trying to lower the population. They are trying.
Okay. Depopulation conspiracy theories are explicitly like a QAnon tier New World Order conspiracy. The population's going up, actually. Usually people who bring this up are bringing up white genocide as well, because the countries where population is lower tend to be developed countries, and developed countries tend to be white countries because of, European imperialism. It's a thing that happened. You can read up on it. Yeah, I don't know. Okay.
Trying to set the stage for their high-tech, low-wage economy. The problem of overproduction.
So, high-wage, low-tech economy. This is a good point. The modern gig economy. But what does that have to do with imperialism? The gig economy, Airbnb, hey, you've got spare time, use it to drive people around for Uber. That doesn't really have anything to do with imperialism. It's a product of internal production forces, but that can exist with or without the imperialist, features of our economy. They're certainly not the same group. I think you can levy criticisms at that element of our modern economy without abstracting things in this way. Why is his face so meme-worthy? He is a silly-looking guy. Yeah, he is.
And the tendency of the falling rate of profit and the general law of capitalist accumulation, the way that they plan to resolve it is by canceling millions of working people. By
canceling? On Twitter? Did he mean firing? Okay, wait, was that a misspeak, or does he literally mean canceling, like they're gonna cancel you? Like on Twitter? What is this buzzword brain rot? This is massive Twitter brain rot. Okay, so additionally, that was not an appropriate use of the falling rate of the tendency for the rate of profit to fall. Like those, he didn't really establish how those were related to what he was referring to here, especially since the high-tech, low-wage economy has a lot more to do with the process of like streamlining the service industry than it does the the rate of commodity accumulation and production, because obviously the modern gig economy is service oriented, not commodity oriented. So it seems like it's not really related, just kind of like some lefty terms to throw in there, but okay. I gotta wonder if the cancellation thing here, and if people think I'm overanalyzing this, by the way, it's just that I want you guys to have a kind of an understanding of how these types of people tend to talk. B, you're going to hear talking points like this everywhere, and, good to know how to speak against them. And 3, I think it's important to understand that outside of literal neo-Nazis, people like Caleb Maupin speak with more density of misinformation than any other group of people I've ever... Did I do AB3 again? Did I do that again? That is interesting that I've done that twice. Anyway, Caleb Maupin engages in a very high density of misinformation. In fact, in all the time I've seen him speak, very rarely does he go a single sentence without lying or saying something incomprehensible. So, it's kind of fun to tear into. It's almost like a challenge for me. It's like being given something that was meant to be a cake, and all it is a burnt husk of charcoal clinging to a baking pan, and I'm meant to discern what the ingredients were based on like chemical testing. Like, you're giving me a very difficult ruination to work with, but
lowering consumption, reducing consumption, lowering the population. They are Malthusian. They are...
Wait, lowering consumption? We've increased consumption. Wait, what? All of our production and cultural forces are aligned in increasing consumption. Malthusian, he's talking about depopulation again. Wait, I'm sorry. So does he simultaneously believe in the tendency for the rate of profit to fall, which has to do with increasing commodity consumption and production, and also that they're going to try to reduce commodity consumption? He's a degrowth guy, right? Well, it doesn't really matter what terms he brings up, because you can reliably believe that Caleb Maupin is lying or wrong about anything that he says. Oh, hey, Lumi.
Are vicious. They don't have a place for us in the global assembly line any longer. And in order to keep their profits rolling...
Who's us? All workers? Because I promise you that the working class is going to remain a prominent feature of industrial production, I gotta wonder, American working people, I really gotta wonder. See, Caleb Maupin used to put in more effort to making his propaganda and his dog whistling kind of equally appealing to right and left-leaning people, but this is what I mean when I say the Nazbol vortex is collapsing. They can't do that anymore because these are all kind of covert Nazis, and they have to be more explicit in their right-wing appeal, which is why what we're listening to right now really does just sound like QAnon speak with a couple of lefty terms thrown in.
Rolling in, they have decided to engage in this kind of activity. And that is why it is necessary. You can't talk about fighting Wall Street and repeat and help them colonize Eastern Europe.
Does anyone else think it's interesting how, for somebody who claims to be a socialist, he never uses the term capitalism? Like, he has to say Wall Street. Because Nazis will use Wall Street to refer to Jews, but they don't use capitalism to refer to Jews. Capitalism, when it's used in sort of an invective, a criticism against capitalism, that's pretty much exclusively a lefty thing. Wall Street, though, like, why Wall Street? It's interesting.
You can't talk about fighting Wall Street and support their hypocritical anti-China hysteria. It walks hand in hand. There is
Anti-China hysteria. Wall Street, we have massive economic ties with China. Huge economic ties with China. Enormous economic ties with China. Wall Street loves investment in China, and China invests in America. That's not... The group of people who tend to dislike China aren't Wall Street investors. They're, foreign policy nerds who are worried about, like, geopolitical hegemonies. He uses Wall Street coded as American capitalism. If he is, then he's wrong. Guys, you want to know a secret? American capitalists genuinely do not give a whether or not they make their money off China or America, okay? This is a fact, all right? America could be subsumed by China, and as long as their lines of credit remain open, they really don't care. They are shiftless and are not connected to any national... When people talk about Wall Street like it's an extension of direct American geopolitical interests, they're showing their ass. They don't know what they're talking about. Capital knows no borders. They don't care. They'll make more money. If they think they'll make more money from, like, leaning towards China, they will. The past 50 years of outsourcing, have shown this pretty clearly. People in big business just care about making money. They really don't care, like, about national allegiances. There are good and bad things to that. I'm not a big fan of nation states, so I guess it makes sense that economic forces would transcend borders, and I'm okay with that in concept. There are bad sides to this as well. Companies will often invest in and profit from countries that do really bad stuff, like the United States, and also like China.
Is a common destiny for the working class of the United States and the people of the world. It is the same struggle against the imperialists, and we have to beat that drum over and over and over again. There's no separation between the struggle. The struggle against Big Pharma is a struggle.
Interesting. Big Pharma. I wonder why that specific institution is being brought up during COVID when the people who hate Big Pharma are all QAnon Trump lunatics. As very curious that is the particular group, the institution that he would work towards.
Of the working class of the United States and a struggle of the people of the world. And the struggle, against the prison industrial complex.
Okay. I'll take that one. I don't think that one is a far-right dog whistle. I think that one is a straightforward talking point that can't really be misinterpreted as a dog whistle.
Struggle against police brutality is the struggle against U.S. imperialism. And it's the same state apparatus. It's the same big corporations and monopolies and banks. And you have to connect these struggles. And,
I
if you're
agree.
helping
Synthesis.
them take down Russia, how can you then protect the people of the United States? If you're...
What? Well, we had it for a second.
Same big corporations and monopolies and banks. And you have to connect these struggles. And, if you're helping them take down Russia, how can you then protect the people of the United States?
Can I know how the pharmaceutical complex is working to take down Russia? What does that mean? I don't know what that means.
If you're helping them go after China, how can you protect the working families of the United States?
What does that mean? So the deliberate ambiguity here, it's meant to be purposeful. The last thing people like Caleb Maupin want is for you to understand how the world works, because if you did, you would never be able to agree with him. Helping the prison industrial complex and pharma take down China. What the f are you talking about? China and America are mutual business partners. We mutually invest. Listen, folks. If you ever want proof of this, okay, wait for China to make its move on Taiwan. You know what's going to happen? Not even close to what's happening right now to Russia. You know why? So if China invaded Taiwan, they would do about the same thing Russia did. Oh, this is our historical, territory. Oh, blah, blah, we're rescuing them from far-right what, okay? The difference is Russia is a poor country, and we can sanction Russia without heavily destroying Western business. Russia just does not have enough money in it. They're not prosperous enough. They don't trade with us enough in order for sanctions against them to be that destructive towards us. It still hurts, don't get me wrong, but it's manageable. China, on the other hand, full sanctions against China would collapse the world economy. It would be really, really bad for everyone. Which means that if they did invade Taiwan, maybe we supply arms to Taiwan. We already have. Maybe we supply more. Maybe the full-on pro-Taiwanese propaganda machine goes into effect. And by the way, I would agree with it. Go Taiwan. I support the people of Taiwan in their struggle to reclaim West Taiwan. But we would not be able to sanction China into oblivion. It would not happen. It couldn't happen. Because if it did, it would be ruinous to the entire world. You guys understand? But what I'm talking about right now is proof of the fact that Wall Street doesn't hate China. Far from it. If Wall Street hated China, then there wouldn't be this degree of economic cooperation. It means that we're too intertwined for real conflict to take place. You get me, right? Anyway. He doesn't want you to know how the world works. I don't know if he knows it. I don't know if he knows he's lying. I can never tell with the propagandists, right? I can never tell. I can never tell.
If you're going to fight him here, you got to fight him over there, right? And that there's one global economy. There is one imperialist, monopolist system that is threatening the people of the world. There is an emerging alternative, the Belt and Road Initiative, One Belt, One Road Initiative.
See, so his goal here is to frame Western imperialism as the sole monopolar hegemony, and that the alternative to it isn't actually imperialism, it's counter-imperialism, So what Russia's doing in Ukraine right now isn't imperialism, it's counter-Western imperialism. Of course, in reality, countering another group's imperialism with your own imperialism is still imperialism. Like counter-imperialism, imperialism is still imperialism. After all, the West's support for Ukraine after 2014 was a kind of counter-imperialism, imperialism. Us supporting Ukraine after they ousted the pro-Russia stooge from Ukraine in 2014 was, in effect, a counter to Russia's pre-existing imperialist efforts in the country. In reality, imperialism is often, almost always, actually, counter-imperialism. It's usually being done in opposition to some pre-existing hegemonic effort.
The Eurasian Economic Union, the Bolivarian alternative for Latin America, and we got to stand with that, right? And it's really important. Look, there's a reason that Nicaragua, Venezuela...
Oh, you'll notice, by the way, that he's not talking about the invasion of Ukraine. Like, he's talking about the Belt and Road Initiative. The video is titled, Why Support Russia? And his answer to this is, well, there are other geopolitical groups that want their own, geopolitical power, like the Belt and Road Initiative in Latin America. He's sort of not actually... In fact, I don't think he's mentioned Ukraine once in this video, come to think of it. When the video come out? Yesterday. Seems like an interesting thing to omit, you know what I mean? I'm not saying that there's nothing else going on in the world, but I feel like the Ukraine-Russian conflict probably merits some mention in the video about Russia from less than 24 hours ago.
Iran, the Houthis. There's a reason that they've all recognized the People's Republics of Donetsk and Lugansk. There's a reason for that.
There we go.
Because they understand the connection. We got to make that connection understood ourselves. We got to make that connection understood ourselves.
That's it? That's the clip? Does he not have... Does he do his own editing? Jesus. What an ending. Yeah, not even a... Okay. Not the most charismatic guy in the world. Yeah. Anyway, the root of his argument right there, I mean, if you really distill all of it down to its core, was essentially there's a vague sort of amorphous thing called Western imperialism that is bad, and it controls everything, and it wants you dead, American. And the only way you can fight against it is by understanding that other countries don't want to be a part of American imperialism, and they have their own things they want, and you should support those things. You'll notice, actually, this argument is really, really common from a lot of radical or far left or far right groups, is that they don't argue morally in favor of the thing they're defending. They argue against the groups they dislike. For example, attacking the Azov battalion rather than justifying Russian incursion into Ukraine. You know, they'll only ever talk about how Ukraine is full of Nazis, which is a lie, of course. Russia is more far right than Ukraine is, but very, very common. You only ever attack the things that you don't like. And this is one of the reasons why I was so hard on Bernie or Busters back in the day, because this attitude lends itself towards really bad broader positions where effectively you're always going to be a stooge for the group that's capable of manufacturing the best counter-propaganda out there, the group most willing to condemn, you know? But the group most willing and able to condemn is almost always going to be the group with the best propaganda team, not the group with the best arguments. You need to be able to fairly assess all sides of the conflict and then, you know, make a determination as to which of the possible available outcomes is best. But they will never do that. I have never seen a defense of Russia's behavior that entails like a comprehensive analysis of potential directions things could do, or like directions people could take, and like which is the best option. It's always just, you know, this vague amorphous, well, don't you agree the Azov battalion exists? Well, like, yeah, okay. Rarely anything more than that. I see this video, by the way, in the past month has doubled its views from 6 million to 12 million. Why is Ukraine the West's fault? I imagine this video is gaining a lot of popularity in large part because of the recent conflict and because it's very useful, like in a propagandistic sense. Keep in mind, the argument made in this video, because we looked over it, it was quite bad. The argument made in this video is essentially that Ukraine belongs to Russia because it's in Russia's geopolitical space, and that's that. It was not a moral defense of what Russia was doing. It wasn't an argument in favor of what Russia was or had. It was just Russia has nukes. If they want Ukraine, they get Ukraine. Simple as that. Also, the video is being presented by this guy who postures as a neutral, you know, like advocate for his positions, but the way he frames the 2014 crisis in Ukraine is very heavily biased. Like, he pretends that his mode of analysis is incredibly impartial, but if you actually, like, listen to the way he talks about stuff, it's really, really weighted towards given outcomes. So, you know. Yeah, you can take a look. A ton of these comments are going to be from the past few weeks. Love the speech, and thank God he has the freedom to speak openly and sometimes even negatively about his own country. He definitely changed my mind about this conflict. Yeah, in the United States of America, you actually have a legal right to speak negatively about your own country. We've had that legal right for a really long time. It's actually a pretty common, you know, feature of Western democracies. If only the people of Russia could experience the, you know, the benefit. There's something particularly ironic, a bitter irony, about praising the, you know, the free speech of a person who's defending the country that's taking away the free speech of the people criticizing it.